Hello, hey, what's up, guys? All right, so I'm reading today's video, and well, it seems like I got over people and family because the next couple of scripts are a bit deep into like philosophy and like life approaches, I guess. So here, let's go for today. Today's video is we don't really awaken, we sleep. Sleep is the lower states. Like water flows down, it's easier to sleep. So we're kind of doing it wrong. What are we doing wrong? I don't know. Again, like, I mean, yeah, what are we doing it wrong? I don't know. It's the truth. Like, it's literally my thought. We don't really awaken, we sleep. Sleep is the lower state. Like when water flows down, it's easier to sleep. So I used water as comparison. And to me, I think water is basically the ultimate expression of life. It's because it's versatile, it exists in all states and all this stuff. And why am I pointing at sleep specifically? I think it's because like our seven stages of consciousness, the first one is deep sleep. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but there's the sleeping state, there's the dreaming state, there's the waking state, there's the when you're kind of like awake, there's the waking when you're awake, and then there's the awakening state. And then there's basically cosmic and eventually God and then unity consciousness. Amazing. So God consciousness is when you kind of like uh, when you understand that everything's connected to one, to God, and then unity consciousness is when you realize that unity is universal, right? Is when you kind of when you realize that everything is this one. We're not connected to it. And it makes sense because ultimately, like what we do in order to understand something is we kind of like form a relationship with it, or we establish it from afar, and then we form a relationship with it, and then eventually, when we understand it fully, it becomes a part of us, right? It's that logic. Like once you kind of like are at that sage level, I guess, or whatever of wisdom or understanding, then everything in front of you becomes easily like captured. So when I say we don't really awaken, we sleep. And for me, because it feels like any form of activity. To explain one thing, though, uh, that the sleep state of consciousness is not us sleeping, is basically us not being aware. That's why, like, the seven states are literally first you're sleeping, as in like you're on autopilot mode, right? All of us have those like moments in our day or in our week. Depends on how stressed we are and depends on how active we are and depends on how kind of like how intense our reality is. We all have those moments where we kind of like feel completely detached from everything we're doing and kind of like one with the world. The Japanese people have a thing for it. It's called yugen. And let me get you the proper meaning. Yugen. It's like a sudden feeling of oneness. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. Uh, meaning. It's a sudden feeling of oneness with the universe. You kind of go like, what the hell? Like you kind of feel like you are. Uh, normally it happens when you're kind of like when you're experiencing something mysterious, a beautiful storm, a sunset, maybe eating an apple after a couple of days of like not having anything sweet, right? Like all of these kind of like trigger you in a certain kind of way. But back to like the whole concept of we're like water, and any form of activity we do kind of leads to exhaustion, or at the very least leads is us moving away from ourselves. And think about that from an expression standpoint, right? Like the goal of life, or okay, again, like it's a self-reflective process, or it's a self-reflective thought. We are not playing the game of life because everybody says that, right? Like when you're playing a game, you're kind of like protruding a whole lot of energy. You're throwing energy out. So, and I just wrote about it today. That's why I'm mentioning energy. But ultimately, like when you're throwing energy out, you're not playing the game of life. You can't naturally, and it works. But when you're playing the game of life, who's actually choosing the game? You are. Whether you're playing the game of finance, whether you're playing the game of like, I don't know, whether you're playing the game of pottery or whether you're playing the game of chess or politics or arts, our choices, like I want to be a finance director or an entrepreneur or a software engineer or a mother or a father, all of these are kind of us picking a game that is available in life. And ultimately, we're kind of like playing that game. The truth is, our we are expressing ourselves right, but that form of approach is battered with consistent, it has to be met with consistent self-reflection, or ultimately you're playing that one round of it. Like, have you ever met people that are stuck in their careers? Like they're still in one layer or one level of the game, which is their career. They chose it, right? And mostly these people kind of have hobbies that they're super good at because when it comes to the hobbies, they don't necessarily have those objectives. So they're not playing the game of life, they're playing a game with life. And on one side, they're trying to express themselves, they're forcing an expression. And on the other side, their expression is basically seamless. So the idea of water is the fact that you once you give water a whole lot of energy, what happens to it? It boils and it kind of like floats. And then ultimately, as it floats, it calms down and then it condenses itself and then it falls down rain. And what it effectively does, it flows into the ocean. And for us, our activities are kind of pushing further away, right? Like because like anytime we're actively pursuing something, we're playing the game of life. We're choosing that game. So effectively, we're playing a game with ourselves. And we're not really like making the best of our resources. Effectively, because once you're pushing energy, it kind of has to go somewhere, right? If you're pushing energy out, it has to go somewhere. And you have to see where it comes, where it goes in order for you to kind of like, okay, is that where I wanted to throw it or push it or pull it or whatever it is? And if you're follow with that logic, then effectively what you do is you basically are always for a bit outside of yourself. Always at the best case scenario, because anytime you're reflecting in order to go back out, in order to get put back energy out. And that back and forth is very much like, I guess, what keeps us in that sleeping state. Because being awake, which is basically awareness, is is beyond us kind of like completely detached from ourselves and one step above just us imagining things, which in our case it's always like planning for the future, considering stuff. We're kind of creating mental structures in our head and trying to adapt them to the world. And that's how we transition our reality, I guess, how we move it to something else. And it feels like anytime we're actively pursuing something, in fact, what we're doing is we're pushing away from its own core. We're kind of like we're we're actively pursuing our image of it, our vision of it. And that way we're moving further away from it, whatever it is that we're pursuing. And we're moving further away from, well, because if you're pursuing something, you're going to keep pursuing something. And even if you find something about it, you figure something out about it, you're going to get excited and jump to figure something else. So you're always going to be in pursuit. And actively, when you're actually pursuing something, you're kind of moving away from something else. So there's something outside of you and there's something inside of you. And then anytime you're moving towards that something outside of you, you're moving away from the something inside. So when somebody says, like, I'm unplugged, I'm awakened, all that stuff, the act of saying that alone shows that they're still like just a bit outside of themselves. Or maybe a lot. Because you could say that out of pure ego, or you can say that because at one point you understood enough for you to feel confident to say that, which still makes you not confident enough to keep it inside and discover more about it. So, yeah, sleep is the lower state. And effectively, anytime we're trying to wake up or to stay awake, we're diving deeper into deep sleep where we're just on autopilot mode. And when I say we, it's like your mind is doing its own thing because it's kind of like resolved to deal with shit. And effectively, what you're doing is giving it more shit to deal with. So it's no longer you playing a game with life. It's a game, you're playing a game, the game of life. You're picking something and playing it as a game, and living. Love this shit. Yalla, next video.